Hello and welcome to the Goblin Ringleader podcast, where we talk about everything goblins related. I'm a mainly goblins player in modern, and I play goblins in almost every other format. I love goblins. It's the first deck that I started modern with, and we're gonna get into the recent 10K that I went to in Minneapolis over the weekend. Taken down by Dominic Harvey. Shout out to Dom. Absolute legend, playing Amulet Titan to almost an undefeated record. Amulet is definitely, in my opinion, one of the better decks in the format. So we're going to talk about my list today, Rakdos Goblins. Personally, I believe that Rakdos Goblins is one of the better decks in the format. It's a turn 3 infinite combo that is facilitated by a card called Conspicuous Snoop, where it allows you to play the top card of your library revealed. You can cast goblin spells from the top of your library, and as long as the top card of your library is a goblin card, Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card. This allows you to go infinite on turn 3. Turn 2, Snoop into turn 3 Harbinger. You play your land, cast Harbinger, trigger, put a Kiki-Jiki on top. Kiki-Jiki allows you to tap Snoop to create a token of target non-legendary creature you control. It gains haste until end of turn, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. And so because Snoop has that templated wording on it, and Snoop is not a legend, it can tap to target itself. You make infinite tapped Snoops. The last one enters untapped. It taps to make a hasty copy of your Harbinger, changing the top card from a conspicuous Snoop to the top card of your library from a Kiki-Jiki to a Slinging. I apologize. Uh, then your backup game plan is pretty simple. You play goblins, so you want to go wide and attack as fast as possible. We also play 4 lords to help us in this endeavor. 4 matrons, just a tutor for whatever combo piece we're missing. 3 skirk prospectors to allow us to advance our game plan as fast as possible. Ringleader is our best control card. It allows us to draw cards and extend the game when we need to. Krenko is the best card against combo if you're trying to close the game out as fast as possible, being able to go turn 1 Skirk, sack Skirk, turn 2 Warchief, turn 3 Krenko, tap Krenko, make 2 Hasty Goblins, attack for 4, untap, tap Krenko, like minimum tap Krenko, make 4 more Goblins, attack for 6 plus the 2, which is the Warchief, which is 8, and then they're on a 2-turn clock. A Krenko allows you to close the game extremely fast, especially with Slinging Lieutenant. This is, in my opinion, by itself one of the best cards in the deck. It's a 4-mana 1/1 that makes 2 1/1 red goblins when it enters, and you can sack a goblin for free to drain gain. So there's many games where you are racing, where it allows you to throw your creatures in front of things to chump block, and then you sack them before damage to drain gain, so that you gain life and it buys you more time later. It also allows you to finish the game extremely quickly if you're pushing damage. You attack with 5/1/1s. Your opponent blocks 2 of them. Those 2 still get through because you drain gain. And then all of the other 1/1s that dealt damage, they are able to deal additional damage afterwards while you just sack them and slingshot them. So, aptly named. Munitions Expert is the best card against aggro. Patchlick Mons is against control. And Goblin Warchief is, again, for combo. We play 4 Aether Vial, 4 Cavern to allow us to have a good control matchup and to get our spells down as efficiently as possible. 1 Blood Moon in the main because there's some decks that we need to spike game 1. I believe that Amulet is one of the best decks in the format, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, and Blood Moon is one of the better cards against Amulet. We play 4 Hovel, 2 Crypt, 2 Den. There's a consideration to playing fetches and splashing green. You can play Masked Vandal as well as Coco and Pick Your Poison. After I talk about the results, I'll tell you the list that I'm thinking about changing to, because I did see positive results. I went 5-4, which was not horrible, but not quite where I wanted to be. The sideboard is something that I personally am very proud of. The 3 Leliana Sanctities is one of my pet cards. We're a combo deck, and so I win the game if my opponent does nothing. So that, how do we win the game, is answered. Now we have to assume that our opponent is not going to let us win the game. How will they attack our combo? There's a multitude of ways that they can do it. Discard is one of the most efficient ways in the format. A turn 1 Grief with an Ephemerate is an extremely good start that not a lot of things can deal with. there's not a lot of cards on the play that stop a turn 1 Grief. Leyline of Sanctity is one of the only cards in the format that on the draw keeps you from being double discarded turn 1. So I would say if you hate Grief, play Leyline of Sanctity. For 3 Leyline of the Void is for Murktide mainly. I used to be for Dredge, but I mean, not Dredge, Living End. I apologize. It incidentally hits Dredge. There's a lot of decks in the format that just incidentally play graveyard cards, and so sometimes you just want to bring in Leyline of the Void, but mainly this is for either Yawgmoth or Living End, but now it's just mainly for the Murktide matchup. Against Grief, you bring in the 3 Leyline of Sanctities and you cut 3 Vials. Against Murktide, you bring in the 3 Leyline of Voids and the 2 Chalices, and you just cut your hyper-aggressive cards that die to bolts, and then you just go super late game. Filigree Silex is one of my favorite cards. This is currently one of my pet... Oh, come on. This is currently one of my pet cards. So, Filigree Silex is a 2-mana artifact. Oh, come on. Filigree Silex is a 2-mana artifact, a legendary artifact. You can tap it, put an oil counter on it. Then you can tap, sack it to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of oil counters on it. So it's a Ratchet Bomb, but it has an additional mode. If you remove 10 oil counters from among the permanents you control and sacrifice the Filigree Silex, it gets to deal 10 damage to any target. So sometimes you wouldn't have this happen against control, but sometimes with a Blood Moon down, you're both drawing cards and passing. Let's say you get this down, you 10 turns later, bolt your opponent for 10. Now, that's not what this card's for. This card is specifically for Rhinos and for the decks that make Urza Saga constructs as like their main way of winning. So anything with zeros where you just need to blow it up, it's good at blowing up opposing Hammer Time players, because you either put it on 0 or 1 usually, and so sometimes your opponent just has all their things on 1, you go tick it up to 1. If they can't kill you, you untap, and then for free, you don't have to pay mana to do it, you can just activate it at instant speed to blow up their entire board. Chalice of the Void, again, amazing against decks like Murktide. Any deck that really plays just a bunch of 1/1s. Let me move this around real quick while we look at the sideboard. Come on. Okay. Then... Okay, I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. Then we play Dampening Sphere. Dampening Sphere is one of the better cards against Amulet. It's the hardest matchup I believe that we have. Amulet is a turn 2, turn 3 deck that has a better late game plan than we do, and they have a faster combo kill than we do. So overall, the Amulet is just, I believe, a better version of our deck. But I prefer the matchups that Goblins are preferred against to the matchups where Amulet is preferred against. I feel like if you approach Magic from the perspective of winning, you're never going to be happy. If you approach Magic from the perspective of solving a problem, then you're able to see in your mind's eye what it is that you're trying to do. Okay, I'm trying to not lose to control. I can play every other matchup just fine. I can lose to aggro, I can lose to combo, I can lose to mid-range. I do not want to lose that control match. And so the decks that I play will be specifically geared towards beating control decks, because that is what I enjoy to do. So Dampening Sphere is really good against Amulet Titan, and the 1 Blood Moon is also for Amulet Titan. Now the most controversial card in the sideboard is going to be Cursed Totem. I am a infinite combo creature deck that plays 2 Cursed Totems in the sideboard. Now, let's talk about it. The reason why is because I believe that I can attack better with my 4 Lords and all these little 1/1s than my Yawgmoth opponent would be able to if they just had to attack with their O1s and maybe their grist tokens. I personally think that if I'm able to shut off activated abilities, I have a better chance of winning than the Yawgmoth player does. And if I don't have Cursed Totem, then I hard die to a Yawgmoth. My deck is all 1/1s, and so they can just sack their board to kill my board, and they're left with the Yawgmoth, and they drew a bunch of cards, which is the big thing. Yawgmoth kills my board while drawing cards, and so I'll have to rebuild. Meanwhile, all their stuff just is 1 or 2 mana and gives them mana and allows them to have redraws with the Yawgmoth. So Yawgmoth and Titan are two of my hardest matchups, and so the sideboard is geared specifically for shoring up those matchups. Now, my matchup round 1 was against Hardened Scales. It was a really good pilot, but I just happened to have the turn 3 win, and they had to tap out both games, and so it was a very close match. One of the things that I noticed immediately was that someone told me, I believe it was the person who drove me to the tournament, David, gave me some advice, and he said, we need to put 3 pick your poisons in the sideboard and add some fetch lands. And after the tournament, I concur. We definitely need to add some pick your poisons to the sideboard because I am very soft to domain. I realized I have the Blood Moon, but besides the Blood Moon, we do not have almost anything that deals with domain. We're just trying to be faster than them, which sometimes can work, but they play 12 disruptive spells minimum. They play Bolt, Tribal Flames, and Leyline Binding, and so from what I saw, and that's if they don't play Fire and Ice. From what I saw, the matchup's really hard, and so we need to shore up the matchup by adjusting our sideboard slots and correcting. I thought that I would be the aggressor in the matchup. Turns out I was wrong, and we have to adjust. So I lost a domain in 2, learned from it a little bit more, won a game, but didn't quite win the next match again, also against Zoo. Then against Creativity, I have a very good Creativity sideboard. These Silexes, which are phenomenal against Rhinos, because you just get to play it and then just sit there, and if they play the Rhinos, you're like, oh cool, that's fine, do your thing, and then they go to attack you, and as long as they don't have Tidebinder mana up, you just go crack, and then all the Rhinos go bye-bye. Now, you also can play it against Creativity. Creativity makes little 0 mana tokens, and so you can just put this here, and then no matter what they Creativity for, numbers-wise, you can always blow up all of their targets. And so it's a really good card. So then after the Creativity match, it was back and forth. One game I didn't have hate, so they won with their double Creativity. But game 3, I got the infinite combo on 3. Same thing next round. It was, instead of Jund, it was 5-color Creativity. However, I have a very specific game plan in my mind. I've played Creativity a lot at the local store, and so I have some reps under my belt. Next came a deck that I was not prepared for. 5-color Humans has a lot of really cool new toys right now. There's a lore that gives their stuff +1/+0 and ward 1, so that's very good against my munitions expert. Also, overall, Humans is a more aggressive deck than I am, I believe. I'm a combo-centric deck that's trying to steal wins by my opponent tapping out and not thinking that I'm in a position to win when really I am. Whereas Humans is very balls to the wall from the gate, as it is a pure aggro deck traditionally. Goblins can fluctuate. It can be a mid-range deck. It can be an aggro deck. It has so many tools, like Humans. It has so many tools that you're able to just fill whatever role you need to at any given time. But I didn't have as many munitions experts as I would have needed to make this match closer. And so, unfortunately, he was able to Meddling Mage my Snoop, and I didn't have a Vial, so the match was very close, but he won both games handedly. Then played against Coffers. Coffers is a very good matchup for me traditionally. This time, Coffers was not in my favor. They had very strong draws. They had removal for my combo, and then they had Shieldred Ring. And again, I have no answers to Ring. Usually, I'm okay with them just taking damage, but at this point in the game, they had Shieldred, and so every time they would draw 5 cards, they'd gain 10 life. And so they had enough removal at that point where I would try to kill the Shieldred with my 1 munitions expert. They killed enough of my creatures in response where I wasn't able to shoot their Shieldred down, and that was my point of interaction in the match. So we lost that one. Another matchup that could have been shored up if I had fetch lands and pick your poisons in the sideboard, but not for sure. Just percentage points that we could look at and hope to improve for next time. Round 8, played against Domain. I learned a little bit from the last 2 matches, and I was able to eke out a win in this match, but I feel like my sideboard has very, very big holes in it for that matchup. Rakdos Scam came last, and I love playing against Rakdos Scam because of Leyline of Sanctity. My opponents may think that they can have the perfect hand, and actually I won game 3 with my opponent showing me his hand of Thoughtseize, Grief, and other cards. And I was like, and he said if I had a card that gave it pseudo undying, then I would have been fine because I would have just griefed it for no value. But as it is, he had all uncastable spells, and so that was the tournament. I went 5-4. It was very close. My losses feel like they definitely could have been shored up by some changes in the sideboard, but overall, I feel like it was definitely not my my tournament to win. I was ready, but I was not as ready as I could have been. Now, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Goblin Ringleader, and I hope that you guys get to enjoy your day.